We've already covered extensively that buying running backs early in the offseason is usually a very dangerous game, and usually it's not something that you want to do. Now, there are two reasons for this. One, you have to dodge the bullet of the NFL draft, where you don't want Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson going over to the Houston Texans if you're trying to buy in on their starting running back at this point. But the second thing is obviously you're having to dodge NFL free agency. I mean, the guys at the very top, we all understand. Yes, you don't want to be buying into Kyron Williams and then they go sign Saquon Barkley. Not saying it's going to happen. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift. We understand that those running backs may find themselves in a new backfield and actually be the starter this next season. But something that a lot of people don't think about as well is moving beyond what you have with those very top guys that could come in and be the starting running back of an NFL team are going to be the deeper options that could come in and not necessarily take over as the starter, but just turn what appears to be a 3-down bell cow role for Tyjae Spears back into a running back by committee, where what happens if they sign Zeke, Devin Singletary, A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson, Zach Moss? What happens if they draft Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, or Braylon Allen? I'm not sitting here and saying that Braylon Allen would be the starting running back in Tennessee, but what I am saying is if you're buying Tyjae Spears to be the 3-down running back, and then all of a sudden the team goes out there and just makes a minor addition into that backfield, and it goes right into a running back by committee, if you're buying that running back early in the offseason, you're probably losing out on value. So I want to go through and I want to look at all the running backs that are currently being valued in Dynasty Fantasy Football with any respectable price point. And I want to grade out of 10 exactly how safe of an investment that they are. So the best example would be the safest running back in my mind, which would be Bijan Robinson, of course, Hook'em Lawrence. And it's not that I'm going to come out here and say Bijan Robinson's the best running back in the NFL. I'm not going to say that he would be my #1 running back in fantasy this next season. But what I am saying is if you are looking at his job security going into 2024, we're not worried at all about another running back coming here, right? I mean, the reason being is you are looking at the level of investment that this team has into Bijan, where with the top 10 NFL draft pick that he had, he gets a contract where he's guaranteed $22 million, which automatically makes him one of the highest paid running backs in the entire NFL. He's young enough where he's only going to be 22 this season. He's under contract in 2024, 2025, 2026 at a minimum. Then you could get hit with the 5th-year option. Then he can be franchise tagged. So if we're going to have to go through and rank the safetiness level of Bijan Robinson, we're going to go 10 out of 10. I mean, going over to Jahmyr Gibbs, I think this is the only other running back that is going to be getting a 10 out of 10 here as well, primarily for the same reasons. I mean, this is a running back that goes to the top of round 1 last year. He has a contract through 2026, ton of team investment. And you have David Montgomery still there, which I understand. Maybe you say, well, Mason, David Montgomery is going to eat into Jahmyr Gibbs this next season. David Montgomery is there to say, which is a completely fine argument, but that's not going to change Jahmyr Gibbs' value going forward, right? If you buy Jahmyr Gibbs as of March 6th, it's not like this team's going to go out there and take Trey Benson in the 2nd round and then his value can go down. It's not like someone's all of a sudden going to realize in April, oh, actually, David Montgomery's there, so I guess Jahmyr Gibbs isn't as valuable as we initially thought. No, the backfield's pretty much set in stone. You know what you're buying. And these are the kind of profiles. If you want to go out there and pay up for a running back early in the offseason, you want someone that has that security of their situation going through, and you're not having to worry about free agency. You're not having to worry about the NFL draft. Now, Breece Hall would be the next guy that we are putting at the very top here. Now, Hall is a little bit different. With Breece Hall, he's going into year 3. This is also not a running back that went round 1 of the NFL draft, so he's not going to have the 5th-year option. So Breece Hall for the Jets is under contract in 2024, 2025, and then no longer has one. Now, am I coming out here saying they're going to place him? Of course not. I'm just saying I don't think we can put him as a 10 out of 10, especially if you look at the rest of this backfield. I think that the Jets could look at it and go, okay, well, maybe Breece Hall is still for sure our bell cow running back, but it would make sense to invest in a little bit of depth. Maybe it makes sense to go out there and sign someone like Zach Moss, sign someone like Devin Singletary. So I still fully expect Breece Hall to be the starting running back. I don't think anybody's changing that. That's why these are my top 3 RBs in Dynasty. I would go Breece Hall 9 out of 10 with his safeness level. The only reason he's not up there with Bijan, with Jahmyr Gibbs, is just given the contract length and the long-term outlook for his respective team. Now, going over to the next running back in the flogfantasy.com community rankings, I'm just going to go down the community rankings here. So keep in mind, this isn't necessarily my exact rankings. The community rankings are free. If you ever want to pull them up on flogfantasy.com, you can. Of course, my rankings are behind the paywall. I mean, the rankings of pretty much everybody you watch on YouTube are behind a paywall over there on flogfantasy.com. And if you want to get access to those rankings, if you want to get access to our Dynasty trade calculator, I mean, pretty much any Dynasty rookie draft guide that you want, if you want to get access to our Dynasty trade finder, it's all over on flogfantasy.com. Code FLOG, you'll get 30% off any subscription. Plus, yours truly will break down your Dynasty fantasy football team with the podcast. That link's in the description and comment section. But looking at CMC, this is a little bit of a different story because Christian McCaffrey is 28 years old this season. CMC is a running back that's under contract in 2024 and 2025. Technically, they could move on from him in 2025 and save $8 million. I don't see a world where they decide to do that based off how good he just was in 2023. But we have seen before, I mean, if you remember, they took Tyrion Davis-Price with CMC on this roster in round 3, indicating that they're willing to go out there and invest in a running back depth. So I definitely think the Niners could be a team that look at all the draft picks that they have. They have the 31st, 63rd, 94th, 98, 125, 132, 176. Picks past 200 don't really matter, but they have 209, 214, 215, 249. So they have an absurd amount of picks. You could see them going out there and saying, yeah, Elijah Mitchell's not who he was his rookie season. Let's go ahead. Let's sign Zach Moss. Maybe let's take, I don't know, Marshawn Lloyd if he falls to the 4th round of the NFL draft, or if he falls to like the comp pick range at the very end of the 3rd. He's ultimately very safe. Like, obviously, for this next season, we would grade him like 10 out of 10. He's the running back 1 in underdog drafts right now, but I'd probably be going 8, 9 out of 10. I don't think he's at the same level as Bijan or Gibbs. Going over to Jonathan Taylor, we can almost say the same exact thing. If you look at this JT contract, JT is signed for 2024, 2025 with pretty much guaranteed money. 2026 is going to come down now. He plays over the next 2 years where they could save about $13 million if they decided to move off of him. But nevertheless, he just signed this extension, right? Maybe they re-signed Zach Moss. Maybe what they liked what they had as a backup. You could see this being not necessarily a 100% backfield share like Kyren Williams last year, like CMC in years past. Maybe instead this is an 80-20 split. But Jonathan Taylor, still extremely safe. I would say, honestly, based off his age, I'd probably put him over CMC. I'd probably put him at 9 out of 10. Now, this is where we see the fall off, or this is where it is much tougher to project out. Travis Etienne is our next back. Now, I like Etienne. Running back still on his rookie contract. He's shown that he can be a 3-down player. I think this Jacksonville Jaguars offense will bounce back this next season. But this is the perfect example of a running back that is pretty much priced as if he is just the full-blown starter this next season. And if you look at the situation that the Jacksonville Jaguars find themselves in, they can get the 5th-year option with Travis Etienne in 2025. But, I mean, ignoring that, Etienne is sitting here at 25 years old, the final year of his rookie contract. They decided to take Bigsby in the 3rd round last year, so we don't necessarily know if this coaching staff loves Travis Etienne as his 1st-round draft capital, but indicate the Jags have a considerable amount of draft capital now that they're not going to keep Calvin Ridley. So they have the 17th, 48th, 96th, 115th, 117th, 152, 195. I could easily see Jacksonville going out there and taking a running back in round 3 and just trying to find that complement to Etienne, which, I mean, I don't want to act like it should hurt his value, but we saw what happened when they took Tank Bigsby last year. We saw how people reacted. I would put Etienne more so 7 out of 10. Now, going over to our next guy, Kyren Williams was the ultimate league winner last season. I whiffed so hard on Kyren Williams, where we had never seen a running back at the NFL level be as slow and small as Kyren and find that RB1 upside. And Kyren Williams was better than just a regular RB1. I mean, he was a top 3 guy. He came from nowhere, and he won you your league. So I want to be very transparent. I maybe have Kyren on one dynasty team out of like 15 or 20. I wish I had Kyren Williams everywhere. It would do me a lot financially if Kyren Williams ended up busting this next season. So that's where my bias is. I am also looking at Kyren Williams as a running back that really has no team investment into him. He's getting paid $1 million in 2024. He's getting paid $1 million in 2025. This is a running back that went at the very end of day 3 of the NFL draft. This is a running back room that has absolutely no depth whatsoever. So I think the Rams are the perfect example with Kyren Williams of a team that could go out there, and I'm not saying they're signing Saquon Barkley. I'm not saying that they're going to sign Josh Jacobs. They're not bringing in a starting running back to replace Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams does look to be the full-blown starter. But I do think you have a risk here in that they go out there and maybe if they can get, say, DeAndre Swift on a super cheap deal, and they bring in Swift to take 30% of this backfield, and instead of Kyren Williams seeing 100%, Kyren Williams falls down to 70%. So it obviously depends on the price point that you'd be buying Kyren Williams with. But I would put him like 7 out of 10, 8. I would put him more so 7 out of 10 given the lack of team investment that he has. I do think that the Rams could bring in some running back depth, not turn it into a full-blown committee, but I don't know if Kyron's getting 100% of the backfield again this next season. Now, going over to Devon Achane, Achane is a little more invested into him. I mean, still, this is a running back that went at the end of day 2. With Achane, very small running back. I mean, he is the only running back alongside Darren Sproles that weighed fewer than 190 pounds, yet found a running back 1 finish over the past 15 seasons. He did it with efficiency, and really had no volume to go along with it. So with Achane, I think this is another example of a running back that maybe is a little bit undersized, that obviously is a very good player from a real life perspective and is going to have a big time role with the Miami Dolphins this next season. But I would also put him at like a 7 out of 10 in terms of his safetiness level. And then I think you can see Miami bring in a depth running back to maybe not give Achane 80+% of the backfield, considering his lack of size. Now, I will say what makes Achane a little bit safer is the fact that the Dolphins don't really have many picks. They had to forfeit their 3rd rounder this year. So they have 21, 55, 157, 186, 200, and 239. Going over to James Cook, this is a running back that has 2 years left on his deal in Buffalo. Drafted in round 2, so a little more invested into him. What I would be somewhat concerned about with James Cook is we have seen the Buffalo Bills try to bring in another running back before. Remember the signing of Damian Harris, indicating that they possibly don't view James Cook as that 3-down bell cow. And at the same time, they have picks 28, 60, 99, 129, 143, 159, 162, 198, and then a couple picks past 200. So they have a ton of capital. We have seen them in the past be willing to bring in a committee running back alongside James Cook. That instance, it did not work out. But I think this is another example where I'd honestly put him at like a 6 out of 10 in terms of safetiness level if you are buying right now, where I think the Buffalo Bills may not bring in a replacement starting running back, but may bring in another running back to split the backfield. Now, going over to Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, in my mind, would be a very safe buy. He is the perfect example of someone who appeared safe last offseason. If you bought him at the beginning of last offseason, once they take Zach Charbonnet, you automatically see that big time loss in value. But now that Charbonnet's there and they have 2 running backs on their rookie deals that have 2nd round NFL draft capital attached to them, I find it very hard to believe that Seattle would go out there and they would take another running back of significance. So Walker's another example of maybe like a Jahmyr Gibbs type instance where he's already put into that running back by committee. He's already priced as if he is that running back in a committee alongside Zach Charbonnet. So if I was grading out his safetiness level in terms of Seattle bringing in another running back or not, I would go like 9 out of 10. It's not to say that Kenneth Walker is my favorite buy right now. I actually really like Charbonnet as a buy, but I do think that this is a safe backfield. We're not having to worry about a free agent. You're not having to worry about a player in the draft going there. Pacheco's interesting because Pacheco has no team investment. Pacheco's another one of these guys drafted at the very end of day 3, getting paid like $1 million a year. And he has 2 years left on this rookie contract. He's 25 this year, 26 the following. So if I'm looking at Pacheco, on paper, I would say that this is a running back that I'd be very worried about. Like if this was a different year where this draft class was great, I think I'd have to sit here and go, you know what? I'm selling Isaiah Pacheco for reasons X, Y, and Z. Similar why. I mean, you went through and sold Philip Lindsay after a hot year 1. You sold James Robinson after a hot year 1. With Pacheco, we've seen it for 2 years now. With Pacheco, it's a weaker draft class. And with Pacheco, the Chiefs do not have many draft picks this year. Unlike if you're looking at Buffalo with James Cook, where the Buffalo Bills have like 10, 11 draft picks, the Chiefs have 32, 64, 95, 133, 158, 172. So, I mean, they're sitting here with 6 picks It's just less capital and less bullets that you have to dodge in the NFL draft. I mean, I think this could be a landing spot, though, if they wanted to go out there and they wanted to sign like DeAndre Swift, right, and turn this into a committee. Now, going over to Rachaad White. Rachaad White's a day 2 draft pick, 2 years left on this deal. A lot of these guys kind of look the same with their investment in their contract situations. The Bucs, I mean, surprisingly enough, look like they should be contenders with Rachaad White. Very inefficient this past year, just had a massive workload because there was nobody else in Tampa. And I think this is another example of a backfield that could turn into a running back by committee, where I'd probably be putting Rachaad White at like a 6 out of 10 in terms of his safetiness level. And that it would make a lot of sense, I mean, for this team to go out there, sign Devin Singletary, sign A.J. Dillon. They're obviously not better running backs than Rachaad White, but possibly if you deploy both running backs in a committee, say Singletary and White, you get better results at the end of the day, and you're a little bit more secure just in case there is that Rachaad White injury. Now, going over to our next guy in Tyjae Spears, I have found a lot of people pricing in Tyjae Spears as if he's the 3-down bell cow running back in Tennessee. He's kind of a big reason why we are making this video. And that if you go through, you'll look at who Tyjae Spears is. He was an underwhelming prospect coming out of school that goes to the Tennessee Titans, plays alongside Derrick Henry, carves himself out a role, which is extremely impressive. What's even more exciting about Tyjae Spears is he carves himself out a role as a receiving back on his rookie contract. Now Derrick Henry's out the door. You look at this depth chart and you go, okay, Tyjae Spears is the only guy left. I guess that means 20 touches a game. It's fine to take an upside shot. If you go out there, trade the 112, trade the 201, trade the 202 for Tyjae Spears, I can easily see that working out for you, because if he dodges free agency, where they don't bring in Devin Singletary, they don't bring in Zach Moss to turn it into a committee, they don't draft anybody like Marshawn Lloyd, they don't draft Jalen Wright in the NFL draft, and we truly get to the start of the season and Tyjae Spears is the only guy there, if you bought him for the 112, oh, that's immaculate. You stole the man, and you should be super pumped, even if it's a bad offensive line and a bad offense. However, if you're paying up the price as if he's the 3-down back, you're paying up the price as if it's September, and we know that this depth chart is this way, and you're trading away the 107, 108 to get the guy, you're paying the price at a ceiling where if anybody goes there in free agency, if anybody goes there in the draft, you're crushed. So it's always a safer spot just to be waiting. I would put Tyjae Spears at like a 5 out of 10, to be honest. I think this is a clear spot where the Tennessee Titans may go out there and they may just grab a depth running back and implement Spears in a committee how it was last year. Now, Javonte Williams will be our next back. I mean, it's crazy to say this. I guess it's just because Javonte missed that one season. It seems like he hasn't been here that long. This is the last year of his deal in Denver. What maybe saves Javonte Williams, this is just a team that's so screwed. I mean, if you look at their picks, they have 12, 76, 122, 144, 146, 237. They traded picks to get Peyton. They gave all the guaranteed money in the world to a quarterback no longer on the roster. People are saying that they're going to trade up in the NFL draft. I would be terrified for Javonte Williams if they had 11 picks like the Buffalo Bills. The saving grace is there's not a lot of firepower for them to take a running back in the draft. It seems like they have pressing needs above running back for free agency. I'm still going to put Javonte 5 out of 10, though, because ultimately he's a running back that's shown promise, but not a guaranteed guy that is walking into his contract season. Najee Harris walking into his contract season. I mean, the saving grace for Najee, similar to Kenneth Walker's, you have Jalen Warren there, right? So Najee's already being priced as if he's committee back. People already understand he's splitting with Jalen Warren. So maybe it's a little bit of a safer of a buy. Nobody's super excited about Najee. I mean, really looking at this, Ramondre Stevenson kind of finds himself in a similar boat to Javonte Williams, the running back that is on his final year of his deal in 2024, 26 years old. The Pats are in a spot where they have more pressing needs than running back. So it's like, hey, they're not ready to contend either. So you could easily see this team going out there and bringing in another RB. It's just, is that where the priority lies? So ultimately, I mean, outside of the guys at the very top, the main thing that I want to be stressing is if you are buying one of these running backs that appears to just be a full-blown starter at this point, I don't think you should be hesitant because you're worried about Austin Eckler going over to Tennessee and taking the starting job. I think what you should be more so hesitant about is one of these veteran running backs, one of these rookies going to a backfield like Tampa, going to a backfield like Buffalo, going to a backfield like Tennessee. And even if they don't take the starting job, they turn it into a committee where if you pay the price of Tajay Spears, you pay the price of Rachaad White, you pay the price of James Cook as if they're a 3-down bell cow back right now, there's really only downside if you are going out there and trading the 108 for him, at least in my mind. But I hope this helped you out a bit. If so, hit that like, subscribe to Play Dynasty. And if you want my Dynasty rankings, if you want all the premium content from all your favorite creators, Dynasty Trade Calculator, Dynasty Trade Finder. If you want me to break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team with a podcast, all that is on flogfantasy.com. Code FLOG is going to give you 30% off a subscription, a free week trial, and yours truly to break down your Dynasty team. But I think that's all I have for you. I really do appreciate you and really hope we get to see you out in a live stream sometime soon.